Her grandson unplugged her oxygen so his phone could charge. Gloria Watkins didn't gasp, didn't speak, just watched. By week's end, he'd be erased from her will, her deed, and every dollar he thought was his. She'd spent 2 years funding his dreams. Now she was redirecting every cent toward someone who'd never unplug her to breathe. When he came knocking, the locks had already answered for her. Before we begin, may I ask, where in this big, beautiful world are you listening from? It's always a quiet honor to know who's sharing this space. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The hum was gone. Gloria Watkins opened her eyes slowly, the corners crusted, her lashes fluttering with effort. The familiar low murmur, the soft, mechanical purr of the oxygen concentrator, was missing. What replaced it was a thick stillness, too quiet, like the air in a sealed jar. Her chest fought to rise. Nothing came. Her hand trembled as she moved it across the sheets, searching blindly for the nasal cannula tubing. It was there, in place, looped gently around her ears. But it was limp. She turned her head just enough to glance at the bedside unit. The green power light was dark. For half a second, panic squeezed her heart, the kind of panic that doesn't announce itself with a scream, but with the sudden heaviness in your arms and the sharp prickle of heat behind your eyes. She swung her legs over the edge of the bed, slow, deliberate, every motion a calculation against her breathlessness. Then she saw it, the thick gray power cord that snaked from her oxygen machine toward the wall, unplugged, disconnected, just hanging there, curled on the hardwood floor like a discarded limb, and plugged into the socket in its place, an iPhone charger, with a phone at the end of it, lazily resting atop the windowsill, screen lit. She blinked twice, too stunned to feel anything yet. Footsteps padded down the hallway, light ones, quick. The creak of his sneakers followed, the way he always walked when he wasn't trying to hide, but wasn't trying to be noticed either. Landon. He appeared in her doorway, mid-scroll, his thumb flicking across the screen without a glance toward her. "Yo," he muttered, not looking up. "I'll plug it back in soon. She won't notice. She sleeps all day anyway." He scratched the back of his neck, yawned, and turned toward the kitchen. Gloria didn't speak. She didn't shout. She didn't weep. Instead, she stared, not with rage or hurt, but with the still, icy clarity of something snapping in place. Like a final puzzle piece that makes the whole picture visible. Her hands moved steadily toward the plug. The act felt heavier than it should, like lifting through water. She gripped the cord, slid the charger out, and shoved her own plug back in with a click. The green light returned. The machine wheezed to life again, mechanical lungs resuming their rhythm. Air returned to her like something earned. Landon was already halfway through a bag of chips when she reached the doorway. He didn't even turn. "Yo, Nana, we got any of that cereal left? The granola one?" She watched him from across the living room, his back to her, his shoulder sagging comfortably into the couch cushion she had fluffed every morning. Feet on the coffee table, one sock on, one sock off. His phone buzzed and he chuckled, typing fast. He had no idea that the one thing she'd given him without question, trust, had just cracked, clean through. Gloria didn't answer. Instead, she stepped back into the hallway, quiet as a ghost. She moved slower now, not from age, but from calculation. Every breath that filled her lungs now came with a clarity sharper than she'd known in years. Not a dream, not a mistake, not some accident she could wave away with excuses about youth or stress or boys being boys. This was a choice, made by someone who saw her breath as less important than his battery percentage. She sat back on the edge of the bed, oxygen flowing steady now, tubing cool against her cheeks. The sound returned, the hum, the gentle hiss, and with it, a storm of stillness in her chest. Her fingers reached for her nightstand drawer. She opened it, pulled out a black leather ledger, its edges worn from years of careful tracking. She rested it on her lap, unopened, for now. Her gaze drifted toward the hallway. "Granola?" Landon called again, laughing at something on his phone. "Yo, Nana, you hear me?" She heard him. Oh yes, she heard him. But something deeper had just woken up inside her, something that wouldn't be ignored again. The sound of morning filtered in slow, birds somewhere in the oak tree out front, a garbage truck growling 2 streets over, and the gentle wheeze of Gloria's oxygen machine keeping rhythm beside her. She sat at the kitchen table, the old black ledger open in front of her like scripture. Each line told a story she already knew but hadn't reread until now. Tuition, rent, food stipends, bookstore charges, campus meal plans, each. Entry dated, labeled in careful print, her penmanship steady even when her breath wasn't. She tapped the current total with the end of her pen, $36,812.17 over 2 years, $18,000 per year. Broken into semesterly payments she made without fail, always early, always in full. The just for one semester promise from Marie played in her mind like a voicemail she couldn't delete. Just until he gets settled, just to give him a foundation. You know how hard it is for kids these days, Mama Watkins. She remembered nodding, quietly, willingly, back then. She flipped another page and saw the housing deposit, $1,100. Then the utilities she paid for, just until he gets a job. The groceries he bought once and asked to be reimbursed for, $47.28, because he was low from the week before. Her fingers paused on that line. Outside, a sprinkler ticked to life, misting over the grass she'd once cared about. Now it was just something green to look at through the window. She picked up her phone, tapped the contact list, searched, Landon. Call history, June 3rd, missed, May 12th, outgoing, unanswered, March 22nd, sent photo, no reply. She went back 6 months, then a year. The numbers didn't change. A handful of thankless texts, 1 birthday call, no visits outside of holidays, and even then he arrived with a duffel bag and a dead phone, not a hug. Her thumb hovered over the delete button. Instead, she placed the phone face down and opened the side pocket of the ledger. Inside, all the receipts. Cleanly folded, held by a silver paperclip. A tidy little pile of generosity. She wasn't angry. Not in the red-hot, shout-down-the-hallway kind of way. No, this was a quieter thing. A cool, surgical realization. She had given, and somewhere along the line, giving had become an expectation, not a gift. The back door opened without knocking. Dawn stepped in, apron still tied from her other client across town. She carried a small grocery bag, milk, eggs, and something wrapped in wax paper. "Got those muffins you like," she said, placing the bag on the counter. "Guy at the bakery said you haven't been by in weeks." Gloria offered a smile, small, worn. "Lost the taste for sugar." Dawn tilted her head, studying her. "You look like you didn't sleep much." "I slept enough to wake up different," Gloria said softly, fingers still resting on the ledger. Dawn walked around the table, catching a glance at the open book. "Something wrong with the air?" she asked, nodding toward the machine. Gloria closed the ledger gently, the cover pressing shut like a judge's gavel. "No," she said, "just clearing it." Dawn didn't push. She never did. Instead, she unpacked the groceries, set the kettle on the stove. Gloria watched the flame light under the kettle, felt the first whisper of heat begin to rise. "Did he even ask?" Gloria murmured. Dawn paused mid-reach for the tea tin. "Ask what?" "If I was okay," Gloria said. "If I needed anything. If I—" She stopped herself. Never mind. The kettle started to sing. Dawn poured the water, set the mug down next to the ledger, and gently rested her hand on Gloria's shoulder. "You've got breath in your lungs and more sense than he'll ever learn. That's enough." Gloria didn't respond. She stared down into the mug, watching the steam curl upward, vanish into the air like something unspoken. She reached again for the ledger. This time she flipped to the back, where the pages were blank. She drew a line. Then, beneath it, she wrote in ink, "Effective immediately. Tuition payments suspended." The scent of lemon wood polish lingered in the bank's trust office, clean, antiseptic, rehearsed. Gloria sat stiffly in the high-back leather chair, her oxygen machine parked quietly beside her, humming in tandem with the ticking wall clock. The air conditioning pushed cool air from the vents above, but she felt nothing but heat in her chest. Noah Griggs entered precisely on time. Mid-40s, trim beard, charcoal blazer, and a warmth in his eyes that softened the weight he often carried for other people's family decisions. He smiled when he saw her. "Ms. Watkins," he said, "always good to see you." She nodded politely. "Wish I could say the same." He paused, sensing her tone, and took the seat across the glass desk. The blinds were drawn behind him, but faint city traffic murmured through. Noah pulled out her file, thick from years of careful trust planning, charitable gifts, land deeds, and a will last updated 9 years ago. "What can I help with today?" Gloria didn't fumble. "I want Landon removed from everything," she said. Noah blinked. "From the educational trust?" "All of it," she said. "College funding, inheritance, health proxies, power of access. I want him gone." Noah folded his hands over the folder. He wasn't surprised. He was trained not to be. But his pause gave him away. "I know this isn't easy," he said carefully. "Is this coming from something recent, or has it been building?" She looked him square in the eye. "Does it matter?" He took a breath. "Only in the legal sense. If it's emotional impulse, we can include a reconsideration clause. If it's permanent, we'll formalize it with a signed affidavit and witness." "Permanent," Gloria said, "and airtight." Noah gave a slow nod, then turned to his computer. The soft click of keys filled the room for a moment as he opened the legal drafting software. His tone shifted slightly, neutral now, clinical. "We'll begin with tuition withdrawal. Because the funds are privately held, not grant-tied, you retain full discretion. No reason required." She watched the screen light reflect in his glasses. "Then move on to the will," she said. Noah hesitated again. "You left him the Ford and half of the property proceeds. Do you want to reallocate?" "To someone who knows what it's like to need breath and not just want space," Gloria said. "Yes." He stopped typing, looked at her again. "Gloria," he said gently, "I've known you a long time. You sure you don't want a cooling-off period?" She sat forward, oxygen tube shifting slightly over her shoulder. "I asked for help twice last year. Once for groceries, once to get to a clinic in rain. Neither time did he pick up the phone. But he finds time to unplug my oxygen so his iPhone doesn't die." Noah froze. "What?" "I'm not telling you that to stir pity," she said. "I'm telling you that so you don't look surprised when I say this isn't regret. This is clarity." He looked away briefly, jaw tightening. "All right," he said at last. "Then we do this right." He stood, went to the filing cabinet, and pulled out a red-labeled folder marked Emergency Restructure. Inside were blank revocation forms, a clean copy of her current will, and a pen that had seen more family divisions than most courtrooms. He laid them in front of her. "This gets notarized before close of business tomorrow," he said. "But if you want it filed fast, I can push it to the clerk's office today." She picked up the pen. "Is that enough time to remove the education allotments too?" Noah nodded. "By end of the week, if you want it airtight." Gloria signed without pause. The stroke of her signature across the paper felt less like an ending, and more like an exhale she'd held far too long. Noah quietly gathered the forms. "Would you like to write him a letter of notification?" he asked. "No," she said. "Let silence speak for once. It's the only thing he hasn't ignored." The brick building stood quietly between a shuttered bookstore and a second-hand clothing shop, its sign modest, Chattanooga Future Scholars Foundation. The kind of place people walked past without noticing, unless they were in need. Gloria stepped out of the rideshare slowly, gripping the armrest of her portable walker with one hand, the other steadying the oxygen cart that rolled behind her like a shadow. The June sun baked the sidewalk, but she didn't pause in its heat. She moved forward with the quiet resolve of someone who'd already made her decision. Inside, the air was cool and filled with the scent of dry coffee grounds and paper files. A receptionist in her 20s offered a polite smile and buzzed for someone named Tasha. Gloria waited, eyes moving across the faded posters on the walls, smiling students, graduation caps in midair, bold fonts shouting, "A future worth funding." Footsteps approached from a back hallway. Tasha Bird came into view, late 30s, curly hair pinned up, blouse tucked in neatly under a smart cardigan. She looked tired but alert, the kind of tired that came from doing, not coasting. Her expression brightened when she saw Gloria. "Ms. Watkins? I'm Tasha. We spoke on the phone." Gloria extended a hand. "Thank you for making time." "Of course. Come on back." They walked into a narrow office filled with worn chairs, a second-hand desk, and two overstuffed filing cabinets that hummed faintly with old heat. Tasha cleared a spot near the visitor chair. "I understand you're interested in contributing to a fund." Gloria nodded, sitting carefully. "A specific kind. I want to help one student. Just one. But fully and anonymously." Tasha blinked. "We don't get that often." "I'm not interested in plaques or newsletters," Gloria said. "I just want to know if there's someone here. Someone who's already trying. Someone who just can't catch a breath." Tasha studied her a moment, then opened the top drawer of her desk. She pulled a thin manila folder, clipped with a yellow post-it that read, "Urgent, unfunded." "This came in last week," she said, sliding it forward. "Michael Decker, sophomore at UT Chattanooga, biology major. He's working 2 part-time jobs and still barely scraped together first-year tuition. Lost a parent to lung cancer last fall. No co-signer, no backup. GPA's a 3.9. Gloria opened the folder slowly. The boy in the photo looked about 17, though she knew he was likely 20. Dark skin, wide eyes, cautious smile. The kind of smile that held more gratitude than comfort. She scanned the letter he'd written. Not flowery, not desperate, just honest. "I don't want to be the smartest person stuck in a small life because I didn't have the right zip code." She exhaled, slowly. "I'd like to pledge 10,000, she said, "toward his tuition and books, from the account we discussed on the phone." Tasha blinked again, this time slower. 10,000? Her voice had dropped to a whisper. "You sure?" Gloria smiled faintly. "You don't know what kind of debt that pays off." "I'll need your signature to finalize the transfer," Tasha said, reaching for a single-page donor agreement. "You can designate it anonymous if you'd like." "I would." "And how would you like us to refer to the source of the gift?" Gloria tapped her pen twice against the page. "Just say it's from a neighbor who sees him," she said. "That's enough." Tasha nodded, her eyes softer now. "I wish he could meet you. He'd—" Gloria cut in gently. "He doesn't need to. Some people just need to breathe a little easier. That's enough, thanks." She signed the paper in clean, even strokes. Tasha stood as if wanting to hug her but choosing not to. She extended a hand instead. "You just changed a life." Gloria stood too. So did he. He just doesn't know it yet. As she walked out, the sun caught her face again. But it didn't feel quite so hot now. The TV flickered blue and orange light across the living room walls. Gloria stood in the kitchen doorway, watching her grandson sprawl across her floral print couch like it was made for him. He held a game controller loose in his hands, eyes glazed over as gunfire and explosions crackled from the flat screen. Empty plates, one with the crust of a grilled cheese, another with half a banana and a smear of peanut butter, balanced on the edge of the coffee table, the same table where Gloria used to place coasters with care. Now it was just a surface for crumbs. Landon yawned, stretched one leg up on the armrest, the other twitching as he mashed buttons. "Man, if they drop me, you're stuck with me," he said with a laugh, not even turning around. "Better hope that check clears." Gloria didn't answer. He glanced back just once as if to see whether she heard him. When she didn't flinch, he returned to the screen. "They better keep me enrolled. I'm not going back to that call center. Screw that." She stepped forward slowly, her walker silent on the rug. The hum of her oxygen machine was steady, but quieter now somehow. "Do you ever wonder," she said, voice soft but edged, "where the money comes from?" Landon gave a sideways smirk without pausing his game. "Please, Nana, you've got it. What else are you going to do with it? It's not like you're going on cruises." He chuckled, leaned his head back into the throw pillow he never fluffed. "You sleep all day. You're barely using it." Gloria stood still, her hand resting on the curved metal of her walker. That moment in the bank office came back to her. The pen, the clean line through Landon's name, the signature that no longer included him. And then the image of Michael's face, that cautious smile taped to the front of a manila folder. One boy saw her as a utility, the other didn't even know she existed, yet still thanked the world for someone like her. She felt something settle inside her, a stillness sharper than any fury. "Maybe I'll finally buy silence," she said, her voice like wind sliding under a door. "Best investment I've made all year." Landon paused his game, brow furrowed. "What?" Gloria didn't repeat herself. She just looked at him. Really looked. A child once. A boy who used to press dandelions into her palms like treasures. A teenager who cried when his father left. And now this. An entitled man who unplugged her oxygen so he could charge his phone and eat grilled cheese without a thank you. The silence between them stretched long. Landon finally shifted, uneasy. "Hey, you okay? You sound weird." She turned away. "You want something?" he added. "Or you just gonna stand there like a statue?" Gloria moved back toward the hallway. At the edge of the frame, she paused. "I wanted something once," she said. "I wanted to believe you'd turn out better." Landon scoffed. "Jesus, dramatic much?" She didn't answer. She walked away. Back in her bedroom, she opened the drawer again. Not the ledger this time, but the small wooden box beneath it. Inside were the letters from Noah, each stamped and sealed. Finalized trust revision, will amendment, education fund cancellation, all filed, all processed, and the final document, confirmation of a $10,000 transfer to the Chattanooga Future Scholars Foundation, listed under anonymous donor 0248. Gloria ran her fingers across the embossed seal at the bottom of the page. She had erased Landon quietly, without shouting or warning, not from spite, but with precision, like a surgeon cutting out rot to preserve the whole. The front door slammed so hard it rattled the hinges. Gloria didn't flinch. She was seated at the kitchen table, folding clean dish towels with deliberate care, the radio whispering low gospel through the static of the old speaker near the window. Landon barreled in, face red, phone in one hand, backpack slung half open over his shoulder. His words came in a rush of fury and disbelief. "My account is locked," he barked. "Do you know that? They froze my student portal. I can't register for fall. They're saying my balance is unpaid. What the hell is going on?" Gloria didn't look up. She finished folding the towel and set it neatly beside the others. "That's correct," she said. Landon blinked like he didn't hear her. "What?" "You heard me." He dropped the backpack on the floor, the zipper snapping open. Books spilled out onto the tile. You said you'd cover it. You promised Mom." "I said I'd help," Gloria replied, still not raising her voice. "I didn't say forever." Landon's face twisted. "You're seriously doing this now? Right before registration?" She stood slowly, walking to the sink with a bundle of towels in hand. The oxygen tube whispered along the floor behind her like a quiet tale. "You haven't spoken to me in months unless it was about money," she said. And even then, it was through her. As if on cue, the ringtone blared from Gloria's phone. Marie's name flashing in big block letters. Gloria didn't answer. She let it ring. Landon stared at her. "She's calling to fix this. You better pick up." The ringing stopped. A second later, it started again, this time on Landon's phone. He answered it without hesitation, stepping away just enough to pretend privacy, while still making sure Gloria could hear. "Yeah, she's right here," he muttered. "Yeah, she's being weird." A pause, then louder. "No, she won't tell me why. Just drop me like a bad habit." He turned toward her, phone still pressed to his cheek. "She wants to talk to you." Gloria took the phone from his hand without a word. "Marie," she said calmly. Her daughter-in-law's voice was already in full panic mode. "Mama Watkins, please, what's happening? Landon said the school blocked him. What's going on? You said you'd help through graduation. That's what we agreed." "No," Gloria said flatly. "You asked me to help for one semester. You've been treating that kindness like a binding contract ever since." "But he's halfway through," Marie cried. "You can't just cut him off." "I can," Gloria said. "And I have." A long pause. Then quieter. "He's your grandson." "And I am no one's oxygen tank," Gloria replied. "Let him learn to breathe on his own." She hung up before Marie could reply and set the phone gently back on the counter. Landon's face darkened as he snatched it up again. "You think you're teaching me a lesson? You think this is noble?" "I think," Gloria said slowly, "it's overdue." Landon's hands balled into fists at his sides. "Fine, I'll move out. Let's see how you like being alone in this creaky-ass house." Gloria walked to the front door and opened it wide. The sunlight spilled across the entryway. The heat swept in. A neighbor's lawnmower buzzed in the distance. She looked at him. No anger, just a calm steadiness that made his shoulders stiffen. "Go ahead," she said, "if you have somewhere else to be." He didn't move. His face was a war between pride and panic, the kind of stubborn freeze that happens when a threat suddenly turns real. They stood like that for nearly 30 seconds. Gloria didn't blink. Landon didn't budge. Finally, he turned away and muttered, "Unbelievable," stalking toward the hallway like a sulking storm cloud. She didn't stop him. She didn't say a word. She just closed the door gently behind her, turned the deadbolt, and stood in the quiet air. The crash came from the hallway, something hard and sharp hitting the floor, then a muffled curse. Gloria didn't startle. She simply looked up from her seat in the sunroom, where the morning light filtered through lace curtains and softened the corners of the room. It was Landon. Again. He stomped past the doorway, phone pressed to his ear, voice loud enough to wake the dead. "I don't care! She can't just— This isn't over!" he growled. "No, I didn't ask. Why should I have to? It's my tuition. She's family." Then another bang, his bedroom door slamming shut. Gloria closed her eyes, leaned her head back against the floral armchair. Her oxygen tube shifted slightly as she breathed in, slow and shallow. Each breath felt more like a negotiation these days. The side door creaked open. "Morning, Miss G," Dawn called, entering with a grocery bag tucked under her arm and a familiar edge in her voice. She stopped when she caught the tension hanging in the house like fog. What happened now? Gloria didn't answer. She simply pointed toward the hallway. As if summoned, Landon appeared again. Barefoot, flushed, pacing with that restless energy he always had when someone told him no. He stopped short when he saw Dawn. "Oh," he muttered. "It's you." Dawn narrowed her eyes. "Still here?" "Still none of you. Or business," Landon shot back. She stepped between him and the kitchen. "Watch your mouth," he scoffed. "You're not family." "No," Dawn said, setting the bag down carefully, "but I am a mandated reporter. And if you yank her oxygen cord one more time, I'll file with Adult Protective Services so fast your phone won't even finish charging." Landon's posture shifted, cocky to cornered in seconds. "You're bluffing," he said. "I'm documenting," she snapped. 2 incidents, 1 verbal, 1 physical neglect, 1 more and I pick up the phone." He glared at her, jaw twitching. "This is harassment." "No," she said. "This is someone finally holding you accountable." Gloria hadn't spoken the entire time. She sat with her hands folded in her lap, her breathing, even but quiet. Landon threw up his hands. "I'm out of here," he muttered, and stomped toward the stairs. Dawn waited until he disappeared, the creak of each step marking his retreat. Then silence. Then the thud of his door closing. She turned to Gloria and softened. "You okay?" Gloria nodded once. He didn't touch the tubing this time, just shouted, slammed some books. Dawn walked over and checked the line anyway, gently adjusting the connector at the side of the machine. Her hands were steady, but her lips were tight. "Why is he still here?" she asked. Gloria looked out the window. A mockingbird flitted between the wires on the power line. "Not much longer." Dawn crouched beside her, quieter now. "You want me to stay for a bit?" "No," Gloria said, "but I do need a favor." She reached for the drawer in the side table and pulled out a crisp envelope, Noah's card already paperclipped to the front. "Can you call this number for me after you leave? Tell him I'm ready to file the dependency misconduct papers we discussed." Dawn studied her face. "You sure?" "I was sure the second he reached for his phone before checking my pulse." She said it without flinching. Dawn stood and slid the envelope into her purse. "He'll handle it fast. You just rest." Gloria nodded, letting her head lean back again. The oxygen machine hummed. The air smelled faintly of eucalyptus, Dawn must have dropped some oil in the tray again. That small kindness. Above them, Landon's footsteps moved across the floorboards, pacing. Pacing like a lion in a cage he didn't even know was about to be opened from the outside. The courthouse smelled like old paper and floor wax, cool, sterile, indifferent. Gloria sat quietly on a bench just outside the county clerk's office, her oxygen machine hissing low beside her, wheels locked, steady. She clutched a manila folder in her lap, documents inside labeled in Noah's precise handwriting. Notice of removal, non-tenant, adult dependent. The clerk finally called her name. Gloria rose with effort, made her way to the window. A young woman behind thick glass glanced at the documents, eyes flicking over the legal language. She gave no expression, just nodded and stamped the form 3 times. Deep red ink. Filed, she said. That was it. No judgment, no questions, just paper made permanent. Gloria turned and walked back out into the Chattanooga sun. Later that afternoon, Landon was halfway through a bowl of cereal, still in gym shorts, phone on speaker, blasting a podcast he wasn't listening to. The doorbell rang. He looked up, annoyed. "Door!" Gloria didn't move from her chair in the sunroom. She sipped her tea calmly. The bell rang again, followed by a knock. Landon groaned, shuffled barefoot to the front door, and yanked it open. A man in a county-issued blue polo stood there with a clipboard. "Landon Watkins? Yeah? You're being served. This is a notice of removal. Non-tenant eviction. 30-day deadline." Landon took the papers instinctively, scanning the bold letters as if they were written in a foreign language. What is this?" he barked. The man was already stepping off the porch. "Questions go to the county clerk's office. Numbers on the form." Landon slammed the door and stormed back into the house, paper flapping in his hand like a broken wing. "Nana!" he shouted. "You did this?" Gloria didn't answer. She didn't even look up. He charged into the sunroom, waving the papers. "You filed eviction paperwork? You're kicking me out?" Gloria met his gaze calmly. "I'm asking you to leave, formally, legally, like a man." "You can't be serious. What am I supposed to do? Sleep in my car?" "You might want to ask the university that," she replied. "They'll be wondering where your tuition money went." His face went pale, then red, then confused again. This is crazy. I'm your grandson. And I'm done being your backup plan." The room fell heavy with silence. Then the knock came again. Only this time it was faster, desperate. Landon opened the door without asking. Marie. Her eyes were wide with worry, cheeks flushed, hair slightly damp from rushing. "Landon called me," she said breathlessly. "What the hell is going on?" "He's being asked to leave," Gloria said from her chair. Marie turned, stepping inside. "You filed to evict him? He's not some squatter, Mama Watkins. He's your blood." "He's not a tenant either," Gloria said. "That's why the form says dependent misconduct." Marie blinked. "He's just a kid. You're blowing this way out of proportion." Gloria stood slowly. "He's 20, and he unplugged my oxygen machine. Twice." Marie's mouth opened, then closed. "He's your responsibility," she said finally. Gloria's eyes were cold and clear. "Number he was my grace, and he spent it." The room went still. Marie looked at her son, jaw tight, arms folded, and saw not a child, but a grown man standing in a house he hadn't earned, defending a roof he treated like an entitlement. She couldn't speak, so she left. No hug, no defense. Just the soft click of her sandals fading down the porch steps. Landon didn't follow. The envelope was cream-colored, thick, hand-addressed with careful, upright lettering. It sat on the kitchen table beside Gloria's mug of chamomile tea, untouched for the better part of an hour. She hadn't opened it right away. Something in the weight of it, the real ink, the stamp pressed hard into the corner, felt sacred, different from bills and flyers. This was deliberate, chosen. She picked it up at last, slit the top gently with the paring knife she used for fruit. Inside was a single sheet of stationery. lined in a deep navy border, slightly smudged at the edges, like the hands that folded it had worked too many hours in too many places. At the top, "Dear neighbor, whoever you are," and then it began. Gloria read slowly, tracing each word as though they were handwritten prayers. "I don't know how to thank someone I'll never meet, but I'm going to try anyway." He wrote about his course load, his shift at the bookstore, his plans to pursue research in environmental biology, how he stayed up late studying in borrowed textbooks, how he microwaved rice 3 nights a week to save on groceries, how he hadn't told anyone about the scholarship yet, not even his aunt who let him crash on her couch, because it still didn't feel real. "When they told me, I cried. I haven't cried in front of anyone since my mom's funeral, but I cried, and it felt like I could breathe again." Gloria blinked hard. The words blurred. The oxygen machine hummed faintly beside her. She hadn't realized how quiet the house had become since Landon stopped yelling. She read on. "I know I'll probably never know your name, but I'm going to carry this gift like a flashlight through every hard moment. I'll remember someone believed in me, even when I didn't feel seen. I'll do my best to make you proud, even if I never know who you are." The last sentence was underlined. Not for drama, but for sincerity. Gloria folded the letter carefully, then opened it again and read the whole thing a second time. Her hand went to her chest, where her breath felt easier, not looser, just lighter, like the weight of something old had shifted finally to the right shelf. The wind outside moved the curtain slightly. Dust floated through the morning light like a soft constellation. She rose and carried the letter down the hallway. In her bedroom, above the desk where she once kept tuition receipts and spreadsheets, there was now a blank corkboard. She pinned the letter there, dead center. It looked right. She stepped back, her lips twitching slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. A few minutes later, Dawn stepped in, calling softly as she entered. "Miss G, I brought that lemon cake you like." Gloria was still in the bedroom, organizing pens into their cup, moving slowly. Dawn peeked around the corner, froze. "You humming?" Gloria turned, startled. "What?" "You're humming," Dawn said, grinning. "That hasn't happened since—" She stopped herself. "Since before Landon moved in." Gloria shook her head, a little embarrassed. "Maybe I am." Dawn stepped fully into the room, taking in the letter on the wall. She tilted her head, smiled even wider. "Michael?" Gloria nodded. "He wrote to the foundation. Tasha sent me a copy." "Looks like you made someone's year," Dawn said, voice gentler now. Gloria didn't reply right away. Her gaze lingered on the handwriting, the effort in every sentence, the warmth in every sentence she never received from the boy who lived under her roof. "It's like breathing got easier," she whispered. Gloria's legacy of care finally finds a worthy heir, not through blood but through gratitude. The text came at 1:17 a.m. "Landon, you still mad? We need to talk. Can you help cover fall or at least co-sign loan?" It lit up Gloria's nightstand with a soft glow. She didn't stir. Not then. But at 6:42 a.m., with the sun barely cutting through the blinds, Gloria sat upright in bed, robe tied, slippers on, glasses perched low on her nose. She read the message once, then once more, not because she didn't understand it, but because she wanted to feel the full weight of how empty it truly was. No apology, no reflection. Just a hand reaching out the way it always had, palm up, heart closed. She didn't reply with a lecture. She didn't even type a word. Instead, she opened her browser, found the Federal Student Aid website, and copied the link. Then she pulled up 2 job board listings she'd bookmarked days ago, one for a night cashier at a campus diner, the other for a bookstore shelving assistant. She pasted all 3 into the message bar, then pressed send. That was all. Downstairs, the front door creaked as Noah let himself in. He'd insisted on handling the final step himself. "Morning, Ms. Watkins," he said, adjusting the strap on his briefcase. "Got confirmation this morning. Landon's officially removed from residency. Legal and recorded." Gloria looked up from her tea. "He hasn't been back since?" "Left sometime late Tuesday. Didn't file a formal objection. Just Left. She nodded. Then let's change the locks. I brought someone, Noah said, gesturing toward the porch. A small, stocky locksmith stepped in with a belt full of tools and polite silence. In 20 minutes, the doors were changed, front and back. Gloria watched from her chair, hands folded, unmoving. Noah lingered as the man packed up. Want me to draft a no-contact addendum for the trust files? He asked gently. Gloria considered it. Not yet. Let's see if he earns silence before I make it mandatory. He gave a respectful nod and left without pressing further. Later that afternoon, Gloria stood at the threshold of what used to be Landon's room. The walls were still covered in peeling posters. A duffel bag sat half unzipped in the corner, abandoned like a shell. She opened the window. The air was stale, thick with boyhood arrogance and body spray. She pulled the sheets from the bed and bundled them into a hamper. The TV cords she coiled and boxed. She set aside 2 framed photos, one of Landon as a toddler, another of him at high school graduation, and slid them into the back of the closet, behind a stack of old board games. Then she sat at the desk, opened a drawer, and removed an old college pennant tacked to the back wall. By evening, the room was bare of him. The bookshelf had fresh notebooks stacked neatly, a reading lamp glowed warm over a cleared writing surface. She'd chosen a light blue comforter for the guest bed, a calming color, one she didn't associate with disappointment. The space looked useful, lighter, not because of decor, but because of absence. Her phone buzzed again. Marie. Gloria stared at the screen as it lit up, vibrating with insistence. She tapped details, scrolled down, and hit block this caller. Just like that, the line went dead. No explanation, no opening, just closure. She turned off the light in the new guest study, pulled the door shut, and paused for a moment in the hallway. The oxygen tube trailed behind her like a quiet thread, but tonight it felt less like a tether. The email subject line read, Request for feature, Chattanooga Human Kindness, Spotlight from Tasha Bird. Gloria read it 3 times, her finger hovering over the mouse before she clicked it open. Tasha's message was warm, as always, genuine in tone, respectful in language. A local reporter wants to write a piece on anonymous donors. Michael's story moved them. I know you value privacy, but if you'd even consider a quote. Gloria exhaled through her nose, not annoyed, just resolved. She typed back simply, Dear Tasha, I'm flattered, but I prefer the story stay quiet. There's enough noise in the world already. Warmly, Gloria Watkins. Her cursor blinked for a moment before she hit send. She didn't need to be known. She just needed to have made a difference. Later that morning, Noah stopped by with a manila folder and an updated copy of her will. You're sure about the changes? He asked gently as he settled into the kitchen chair. Gloria nodded. Make it 50% to the scholarship fund, and strike Landon from all remaining clauses. Entirely? Entirely. Noah hesitated, then nodded. It'll be final with your signature and the witness line. She signed it calmly, each stroke of the pen deliberate. Not angry, not sentimental, just finished. As Noah gathered his things, she walked him to the door, stopping beside the small garden she'd once let go to seed. The hostas were sprouting again. The soil had been turned over. She'd planted tomatoes in the back. Maybe too late in the season, but she didn't care. Been spending time out here? Noah asked, glancing over the yard. Every day, she said. There's something to be said for making things grow again. He smiled. It suits you. She nodded, eyes fixed on the little patch of basil by the fence. It's easier to breathe when you stop tending what no longer feeds you. That afternoon, Dawn arrived carrying a cast-iron skillet wrapped in a kitchen towel. The smell hit before the door even shut behind her. Brown butter, warm cornmeal, and just a hint of honey. I tried that recipe your sister swore by, Dawn said, setting the pan on the counter. It's got real buttermilk and pride in it. Gloria chuckled, a quiet sound, almost like a breath catching itself mid-laugh. Lord, if it's anything like hers, it'll heal whatever ails me. Dawn glanced around. The air in the house felt different now. Lighter, like it no longer had to dodge resentment hanging in every corner. "You get that message from the foundation?" she asked. Gloria nodded. "Tasha wanted me to give a quote for an article." "You going to?" "No." Gloria reached for 2 plates. "The story they want isn't the story I lived." Dawn leaned against the counter, watching her friend with gentle admiration. "You ever think about meeting him, Michael?" Gloria paused, then smiled softly. "Maybe. Maybe I'll invite that boy for dinner someday." Dawn raised an eyebrow. "With this cornbread? That'd be a power move." Gloria laughed. Really laughed this time. It surprised them both. They ate at the table by the window, the afternoon sun draping the room in gold. Gloria's oxygen machine rested nearby, but she hadn't touched the dial in hours. Her breath was slow, steady. Her mind, for the first time in a long time, felt unclouded, clean. She'd rewritten her legacy without drama, without a fight, just ink and intention. The rain had come and gone overnight, leaving behind the smell of damp soil and summer grass, that clean scent the earth exhaled after holding its breath. The early light spilled gently through Gloria's bedroom window, brushing across the quilt she'd folded down neatly at the foot of the bed. Her morning tea sat untouched on the nightstand, already lukewarm, and beside it lay the small wooden box she'd pulled from the back of her closet just before dawn. It was the one she hadn't opened in years. She ran her fingers over the lid, feeling the faint carved ridges along the grain. It was her husband's work. He'd built it in his last year, saying every home needed one box that held what mattered most. For a while, it held important documents and handwritten recipes. Eventually, it became the place she stored photographs she wasn't ready to part with, but didn't know how to face. Today, though, she was ready. With quiet hands, she lifted the lid and stared down at the stack of memories inside. The box was filled with worn photo prints, faded at the corners, some sticking together from years of moisture and air. The scent of old paper met her nostrils, faintly sour, faintly sweet, the smell of lives preserved but forgotten. She reached for the top layer first, flipping slowly through each photograph. There were images of her younger self standing in a church dress beside her husband, Harold Sr., their arms around one another in front of a white clapboard house that had long since been sold. One photo caught her off guard. Harold Jr. in overalls, pushing a lawnmower with one hand and shielding the sun from his eyes with the other. He looked just like Landon had at that age, same long legs, same impatient posture. But where Harold Jr. had carried a sense of duty even as a boy, Landon had always moved through life like it owed him comfort. She turned the next photo over, then the next. Family vacations, church picnics, birthdays with cakes she'd baked by hand. She let those fall into a pile beside her on the bed, kept not out of nostalgia, but acknowledgement. Halfway through the stack, she found it. It was a small photo, 3 by 5, bent at the corners. A young Landon sat cross-legged on the living room carpet, a construction paper crown perched on his head, his cheeks puffed out with cake. His smile at that age was pure, untouched by cynicism or demand. She remembered that day. He had just turned 5. He had insisted on wearing the crown even in the bathtub. On the back of the photo, in Landon's crooked handwriting, were 3 words, scrawled in blue marker, Nana's favorite. Gloria stared at the picture longer than she meant to. She thought she might feel something stir, grief, regret, even longing. But instead, there was only stillness. The boy in the picture no longer existed. He had faded long before she'd stopped believing he might return. All that remained now was a man who took and mocked and stood behind closed doors waiting for the world to clean up after him. Slowly, she stood and carried the photo through the quiet hallway, down the back steps, and into the yard where the stones of the old fire pit were still dark from the previous night's rain. The grass squished under her slippers as she knelt beside the pit, her knees stiff but determined. She placed the photo gently onto the kindling she'd set out days ago, as if she'd known this moment would come. She lit a match. The flame caught the dry edge of a twig, then licked upward, folding the photo inward as it darkened. The image of the smiling boy curled into ash, and with it, So did the lie she'd been telling herself. That family, by blood alone, deserved to be preserved. Behind her, the screen. Door creaked open. Dawn stepped down into the yard, carrying 2 mugs of tea, her eyes landing on the quiet fire. She said nothing at first. She sat beside Gloria on the wooden bench, the air between them filled with smoke and the soft crackle of letting go. After a long pause, Dawn nodded toward the fire. Closure? Gloria shook her head slowly, watching the last of the paper collapse into orange. Number just a cleaner drawer. The fire popped once and then dimmed, leaving only glowing embers. They sat like that for several minutes, 2 women side by side, saying everything without needing to say much at all. The ballroom wasn't grand, but it was gracious. Inside the Chattanooga Community Hall, the lights were warm, strung high across exposed beams like a canopy of fireflies. Round tables, dressed in white linens and blue ribbon, dotted the room in even rows. At the front, a small stage with a single podium stood beneath a projected slide that read, "Chattanooga Future Scholars, Honoring Determination, 1 student at a time." Gloria stood just inside the main entrance, giving herself a moment before walking in fully. She wore a deep plum dress, modest in cut, elegant in tone, and for the first time in years, she walked without her cane. The oxygen tube was gone too. Her breaths were steady, though measured. She carried herself like someone who knew exactly where she belonged, even if no one else in the room did. A few guests glanced her way as she moved toward her assigned table near the back, anonymity shielding her like armor. Tasha had honored her request precisely, registering her under only a first initial and last name. No introductions, no spotlight, just the quiet dignity of presence. From her seat she could see the podium clearly. Tasha, now dressed in a navy blazer, stood at its side reviewing her notes. The room quieted gradually as the dinner plates were cleared and the stage lights brightened. Tasha stepped up to the mic with a smile that was both practiced and proud. "Each year," she began, "we honor not just the students who fight their way through impossible odds, but the people who help make that fight possible. Tonight, we introduce a new designation. Guardian Donor, an anonymous benefactor whose quiet generosity rewrote a future they may never personally witness." A soft wave of applause passed through the room. Gloria did not move. She kept her hands in her lap, fingers interlaced, still. Tasha nodded toward stage left. "And now, I'd like to welcome one of our own recipients to share his story." Michael Decker stepped onto the stage with a nervous sort of confidence, the kind earned by surviving more than people realize. He wore a slightly oversized blazer and a crisp button-down, collar slightly uneven. His hands trembled as he unfolded a sheet of paper, but when he spoke, his voice was sure. "I didn't grow up with much," he said, "and I didn't think I'd get much further than the edge of my block. But someone out there, someone I've never met, saw something worth saving. And they gave me more than money. They gave me time, space, breath." Gloria's chest rose gently. Michael continued, eyes sweeping across the crowd. "I still don't know who they are. Maybe I never will. But to whoever you are, thank you. You didn't just change my semester, you changed my life. I promise to make something of it." Applause broke out around the room, longer this time, louder. Gloria was the first to stand. Not out of pride, but quiet acknowledgement. She clapped until her palms stung. Michael nodded once in her direction, not knowing why, just sensing someone had met his words where they landed. The program moved on. Other donors were named. Other students applauded. But Gloria remained still for most of it, her mind lingering not on the stage, but on the young man's eyes, grateful, clear, and entirely absent of the expectation that had once haunted her hallway. Later, after dessert had been served and conversations drifted toward exits and parking lots, Gloria made her way toward the coat room. Her gait was slower now, her energy softly spent, but her posture remained tall. As she reached the door, a hand caught it before she could touch the handle. Michael stood there, holding it open for her. "Ma'am," he said politely, smiling. Gloria looked up at him, really looked, and in the quiet of that moment, something passed between them. Not recognition, not revelation, but resonance. "You'll do fine," she said. Michael nodded. "I'll do my best." He held the door as she stepped into the cool evening air. Landon's fall becomes permanent, not through revenge but through replacement. Gloria's legacy has already moved on. The office smelled faintly of lemon oil and copier toner, the kind of scent that clung to quiet finalities. Gloria sat across from Noah, her hands resting lightly on the polished walnut table. Outside, through the tall windows, the late summer sun bathed the sidewalks in amber light, casting long shadows of passing cars and sycamore trees. Noah pushed the final document toward her, the pages crisp and freshly notarized. His tone remained professional, but his voice had softened since the first time she'd sat in that very chair, weeks ago, full of quiet fury and resolve. "This is the last signature, Ms. Watkins. It finalizes the estate and locks the revised terms." Gloria nodded, eyes scanning the page. There were no surprises. 50% of the estate would now pass directly to the Chattanooga Future Scholars Foundation, specifically earmarked for underrepresented science majors. The remaining half had been split among 3 local causes: her church's food bank, a regional hospice organization, and the neighborhood library where she had once read to Landon after school on Wednesdays. There was no line for him now, no name, no loophole. At the bottom, a new clause had been added in Noah's firm, deliberate language. No appeals shall be considered from previously named family members who were removed prior to this revision. She picked up the pen and signed her name with the steadiness of someone whose breath no longer came with hesitation. "Everything's settled now?" she asked. "It is," Noah confirmed, placing the file into a thick, fireproof envelope. All records sealed and notarized. Nothing left to contest. Gloria leaned back slightly, exhaling in a way that made her feel lighter, like she had just returned something she'd been holding too long. As she stepped outside, a gentle breeze lifted the hem of her linen coat. She didn't head straight home. Instead, she walked a block past the bus stop to the small free clinic nestled beside a laundromat. It had been Dawn's idea. The staff had been thrilled to accept the donation, a fully functioning, gently used oxygen machine. "Someone's going to need it more than me," she'd said. Inside the clinic, a volunteer named Eddie had accepted the machine with both hands, like it was something sacred. "We've got a COPD patient in his 50s still waiting on approval," he said. "This'll make a world of difference." Gloria simply nodded and turned away before the young man could finish thanking her. It was enough to know it was going to breathe for someone else now. Later that evening, she sat on her back porch, a light shawl draped across her shoulders. She had brought out a book but hadn't touched it. Instead, she watched the sunlight retreat slowly across her backyard, inching away from the tomato vines and into the corners of the fence. An hour passed without a single interruption. No buzz of a phone, no questions, no complaints, just the symphony of crickets beginning to tune up and the rustle of wind through the birch leaves. She had thought this silence might feel like loneliness. It didn't. It felt like rest. Dawn arrived around 7, carrying a bag of groceries and a sealed envelope in her other hand. "From the foundation," she said, placing it on the patio table. "Figured you'd want to hear it." Gloria didn't reach for the letter. She only looked at it, then nodded toward the rocking chair beside her. "Read it to me?" Dawn opened the envelope and unfolded the letter slowly. "Dear neighbor," she began, her voice soft, "I hope this finds you well. I just wanted to say thank you again. I'm breathing easier. Literally and figuratively. The air doesn't feel so heavy anymore. I hope whoever you are, you feel proud. Because I'm going to make you proud. Yours gratefully, Michael Decker." Dawn looked over at Gloria, smiling. Gloria didn't speak at first. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon line, where the sky had gone the color of watered-down ink. Finally, she said, "It's good to know someone's still breathing easy." And in her chest, something unlatched, not the kind of release that comes with grief, the kind that comes with completion. The ocean murmured just beyond the window, its steady breath syncing with her own. Gloria sat cross-legged on the linen slip-covered couch, a thick paperback resting open in her lap. The walls around her were painted the color of sand, soft, lived in, and warm. The small coastal rental wasn't grand, but it was enough. 1 bedroom, One bath, a kitchenette, and a front porch that looked out on nothing but horizon. No stairs, no neighbors close enough to wave to. Just space, just air. The late morning breeze drifted in through the open windows, carrying the salty scent of thyme and distant wild rosemary. White gauze curtains lifted gently with each gust, like someone slowly exhaling and then holding the breath at the edge of stillness. It had taken Gloria less than a week to get used to the silence here, and now she couldn't imagine ever surrendering it again. She read slowly, not because her eyes tired easily, but because she didn't need to rush. There were no alarms, no appointment reminders, no urgent texts flashing at the edge of her attention. The hum that used to follow her everywhere, of machines, of strained conversations, of being, needed more than seen, had been replaced by the sound of herself turning pages and the occasional cry of gulls somewhere beyond the dunes. The oxygen machine hadn't come with her, neither had her cane. She hadn't needed them for weeks, not since her lungs, long constrained more by stress than illness, had begun expanding again, rediscovering their natural rhythm. Her breathing wasn't perfect, but it was hers. When the phone buzzed, it startled her only slightly. She reached over to the side table, picked it up without urgency, and saw the sender's name, Tasha Bird. She opened the message. There, in the center of the screen, was a photo of Michael. He stood in front of a large poster board covered in colorful graphs and microscope images. A white lab coat hung just slightly oversized on his frame, sleeves pushed to his elbows. In his right hand he held a small acrylic plaque, clearly new. His smile was wide, teeth slightly uneven, eyes full of pride. Behind him, the university logo gleamed from a printed banner, Spring Undergraduate Research Showcase, Department of Biology. Tasha's caption read simply, "He wanted to send this to the person who made it possible. Said he hoped it would reach you." Gloria stared at the screen for a long moment. Not because she didn't know what to feel, but because she felt all of it at once. Not pride, exactly. Not joy, either. But something weightier. Something quieter. It was peace. She typed no words in return, just tapped the heart icon beneath the photo and set the phone face down on the table. The wind picked up again through the window, and the scent of the sea deepened. She leaned her head back against the cushion, closed her eyes, and allowed the air to move freely in and out of her chest. No wires, no tension, no one watching over her shoulder or waiting for her to provide something they were never willing to return. Just breathe. Just calm. Just the sound of a room not filled with noise but with life. She reached for her book again, opened it, and picked up exactly where she had left off, uninterrupted. Minutes passed, maybe longer. Time no longer tapped her shoulder with reminders. It simply stretched. The waves rolled outside in rhythm, eternal and soft, unconcerned with who heard them. A shadow passed across the hardwood as the sun shifted slightly west. Gloria didn't notice. Not right away. She was too busy doing what she hadn't done in decades, not just resting, not just escaping, but living, fully, in her own breath. He thought I was sleeping. I was just preparing to wake up right.